Hello all, this is Halloween and I have been away for a week. I apologize. I was supposed to have videos up last week. It didn't happen because we went to Charleston, as you know, and had run into some inclement weather while we were there. So we came back and we had a little sinus cold for about a week. So that wasn't too awesome. But anyway, on the trip, on the way there, since we were driving, we actually stopped in Merrit Island. I wanted to visit the Georgiana Cemetery, which is well known to be haunted, and just kind of take a walk through. So I took some footage of that. And at the end, once we were done with the cemetery, of course, we went to the Ron John Surf Shop, also a famous place around there in Cocoa Beach. And we hit up Florida seafood, which was awesome. So this is not a food channel, but I threw in some food pictures. So if you're on Merrit Island ever visiting the Georgiana Cemetery, go have a bite to eat at the Florida seafood because it's great. So enjoy. Hello all, this is Halloween. We're here at the Georgiana Cemetery in Merrit Island. And we're gonna see what we can see. I told you I'd come back with some more stuff for us. So we're here now and we're going to go in and pay our respects to some of those we lost many, many years ago. This is one of the oldest cemeteries in Brevard County and probably in Florida as well. It seems to be that here some precious babies are laid to rest. Some teddy bears have been left for them. In some places it's custom to leave flowers or rocks or things of that nature. I only have coins and you can leave that too. So for this baby I'm going to leave a penny. Heads up, of course, to show my respect. And I've been to Tombstone, I've been to Lizzie Borden's grave. There too, people leave currency, pennies, mostly in the form of coins, pennies, nickels, dimes, you know, things like that. Here too, we have another child grave. The boy looks like didn't even live a year and was laid to rest. You'll see here that people have left candles, teddy bears. I'm gonna leave my standard penny, heads up, to pay my respects. I didn't know this boy, but it's just kind to pay your respects when you can, in any way that you can. So there are many children evidently buried in this cemetery, which is why probably that there are children's voices heard in the cemetery at night. That is one of the accounts of this particular cemetery. That is Charles Norwood. The other one was really hard to read. It's an older tombstone and it looked like it was hand etched. This one is a little more current. So if you can see, the graveyard is not really big here. It's quite small. Most of the older graveyards I've been to are not very big. So it's not like the ones we have today where, you know, maybe your mother or your grandmother might be buried or anything like that. These were a lot smaller back in the day. So here we have another child's grave. This child name, Gunther Ming. And he was born in 1916 and died in 1921. I guess he really loved Star Wars. Not even really a good joke. But I'm gonna leave him a penny on his tombstone just to pay my respect. It's always sad to see a young soul that was taken too soon, and you never know why. But back then, people just weren't living as long, and children would die of, you know, insect bites and stuff. You know, it just, we didn't have the technology and the information that we do today to save someone from things like that. So he was a little bit older than some of the others we've seen, and as you can see, people have left, you know, little toys for him and stuff. So no surprise that they play here at night. And this is where Ethel Allen has been laid to rest. Born in 1916, died November 21st, 1934. Perhaps she's the most famed ghost of the cemetery and the most seen even. She's been seen as well at a local haunt, no pun intended, called Ashley's. And as you can see, many things have been left at her gravesite. Unfortunately, she was the victim of a brutal murder that took place, obviously, in 1934. Her remains were found along the banks of the Indian River between Rockledge and the U Galley. She had been badly brutalized, and some parts of her were missing, an entire leg almost, most of her jaw, some of her teeth, and the suspect was thought to be a person that she was traveling to Florida with. And the only reason that people knew that was that she stopped at a local store earlier that evening and told the person, I guess it's a small town, that they were headed to Florida with this person. So she was known to have been with that man that night, and he was never held accountable somehow. So her death and her murder was never solved. The person who murdered her had made attempts to burn her body and throw her into the river, but was unsuccessful. And the way she was found was that a passerby noticed that there were buzzards flying overhead and stopped to check out what the cause of that was. And it happened to be the body of this 19-year-old young woman named Ethel Allen. So I pay my respects to her. And you can see here some other people have left some change as well. It's just custom if you don't have anything else to leave. You know, some kind of currency or candy's been left. The bear. Maybe some people were here for Halloween. They left some pumpkins. There's a woman that leaves angels pretty regularly. So there's a lot of angels here. So this is the most well-known of all of the ones that have passed and are laid to rest here at the Georgiana Cemetery. So I kind of thought this was interesting. It is a family plot. Charles Cleveland, Catherine B. Cleveland, Aaron P. Cleveland. Looks like maybe another Catherine Cleveland. Part of the name is covered up. The graves have sunken in. I guess erosion over time. And then there's a Phoebe Cleveland over here. I don't like to step on the graves. I like to go around if I can. So if you can't see, I'm sorry for that. And that is Phoebe Cleveland. But if you'll look here, I'm looking at the tree. The Catherine Cleveland here is sunken in. And I don't know if that's because of the tree roots or just erosion, you know, water, you know, flooding or whatever. For whatever reason, she's right down in there. So I had to get this one because this is a William W. and a Gladys O. My dad's name is William and his mom's name was Gladys Ophelia. So this is kind of cool to come across. But their last name's Chandler. And I'm sure they were married because they're buried side by side. We've got a William W. right there. Gladys O. Just a coinkydink. So, like I was saying, normally in these older cemeteries, they pretty much close it off to anybody else being buried here. However, there are a lot of graves that are, you know, not filled yet. People have bought burial plots here, and a lot of them are very recent. This person passed in November of 2019. The Bennett Mr. and Mrs. Even over here, we've got Captain Ron. Isn't that the captain from Forrest Gump? Oh no, that's Lieutenant Dan. So, 2005. So, and there are so many others. So it's interesting to see that they're still keeping these iconic and very famous cemeteries open for newer arrivals, because you don't normally see that. If you go and visit old cemeteries in Tampa, even in St. Augustine, Tombstone, anywhere like that, they've pretty much closed it off and you can't be buried there anymore. But so what I'm going to do now is just film from the back of the cemetery as we walk up to the front of the cemetery, so that you can kind of see the length of the cemetery. And I'm also going to blindly do it. That way if anything's caught, we're the only people in the cemetery right now, so if you see anything, it's real. So the sun's going down and the cemetery is getting ready to close pretty soon. So this one's not open all the time. Most aren't anymore. So just going to go through it. Let me go see this one real quick over here. Maybe another baby. Oh no. No, she wasn't a baby. She was just a teenager. Oh, I'm gonna leave her a penny. Her name was Anne Catherine LaChance. Died in 2015. She just had a lot of pretty little things here. Obviously very loved. And there's her penny. So we're gonna start walking back towards the front. Like I said, if you see anything, we're the only ones in the cemetery right now. It'll kind of give you an idea too of how big this cemetery is. It's really not big. It's very narrow and long. So about as long as a city block, I would say. It's very cool how the Spanish moss kind of hangs from the trees and the wind blows through the Spanish moss, making it just really very much like a graveyard. It's a very cool thing. It's a very well kept cemetery. I've been to some that weren't, but this one is very nice, well kept. Wouldn't be a bad place to be buried. However, I'm not going to be buried, so it wouldn't be for me. I like to visit cemeteries, but I don't like the idea of being buried. I can't be the only one. So I'm just walking along in the cemetery right now. Really visited all the sites that I wanted to see here. Still a very nice cemetery from what I've seen in the past. Even, you know, the older ones are pretty well maintained for the most part. I've got one more penny to give. Probably give it to more babies if I can find one. Now we're just walking up towards the front, and I'll be up at the front very shortly because short and sweet, this one. So if you see anybody besides my husband, let me know. Sometimes I think the ghosts are afraid of me. So we would have liked to have visited, you know, at nighttime. However, they're only open during the day. So if you ever do want to come here, Georgiana Cemetery, Merritt Island, they're open daylight hours only. So I just wanted to show you that. And we are walking. Like I said, I have one more penny to give away. I have more pennies than that, but I just really wanted to leave them on the sites where I've, you know, the babies, and I see one over here. I'm gonna leave a penny over here. This one here looks... Oh, the 3 daughters. These 3 daughters are the ones that the neighbor, one of my ghost tour guests one night, thought were the ones that were singing Ring Around the Rosie. So he went, you know, decided to pitch a tent in his backyard one night because he lived right next door to the cemetery. These are the ones. I'm so glad I was able to see that. So I'm leaving my penny there. Myrtle, Mary, and Martha. Wow, that must have been horrible for their parents. One born February 23rd, 1907, died June 14th, 1916. One born April 3rd, 1908, died June 14th, 1916. So they all died on June 14th. And the other one, born April 28th, and died June 14th. Must have been a horrible accident. But as you can see, things are left here at their site as well. For the girls' toys. Somebody came here with a bunch of spongy dice. Just put them on all the kids' resting places. But these are the girls known to haunt the cemetery and be very playful. So evidently they sing Ring Around the Rosie and they play a lot. So wow, God bless these kids. So that is the Georgiana Cemetery. I'm gonna walk on over here to the car, but I'm gonna keep filming just in case, you know, anybody catches anything. Might be too early. I think they come at late at night, you know, when it's dark, but we at least got to visit, and I'm glad that you joined me. I hope you enjoyed the tour of the cemetery, and you can kind of see how far it goes back there. Pretty cool. I liked it. I'm back. I just wanted to kind of preface each trip just so you knew kind of the places that we hit and what the whole video was about. So in this segment of the video, this would be the Charleston segment. The weather was really bad for the majority of our trip, actually Friday and Saturday. It rained and was cold for 48 straight hours. So that wasn't fun, and we weren't able to get out and do as much as we would have liked to. That said, Charleston was really cool. They had some really nice architecture there. Obviously, they preserved their history there, so a lot of the buildings are older, more ornate, you know, very nice looking and older buildings. I love that. I love a town that preserves their history. But it did get flooded. Because of the rain, it is a town that does get flooded. So the flooding wasn't nice either. They have a great market that you can go to. I think it's open every single day, that we found some really unique items in. But it was also very crowded. What I have to say about Charleston is that it really wasn't my favorite out of every place we've ever been. There's other places that I liked a lot more. And the weather probably had something to do with that as well. But a lot of the places there were crowded. It's a very touristy place, and I don't know if it's just the time of year we went or if it's always like that, but it's small and it's crowded. So unfortunately, I mean, it was cool, but I like other places better. But here's some footage of our trip. We went and visited the Circular Church graveyard. On Saturday night, we did a ghost tour, and it was the next day on Sunday before we could visit the graveyard because the whole rest of the time it had been raining. We also visited the USS Yorktown, which was really awesome. So I recommend if you do visit Charleston. It's a little bit of a drive. It's just on the other side of the bridge there and Mount Pleasant. So if you go over to Mount Pleasant, visit it. It'll take you about 2.5 hours to walk through the entire thing. But it's very, very cool. And that was really some of the highlights of our visit there in Charleston, was the graveyard and the USS Yorktown. And the food was also very good too. It is a food town, so if you love food, you'll love it there, because they pretty much put pimento cheese on everything if you're into that. But it's very much like Paula Deen style cooking. Very, you know, home style cooking. Everything's fried green tomatoes, and you have to visit Boxcar Betty's. The O Bar, which is the oyster bar, is also very cool. And they have a great happy hour. I'll put a little footage of what's on their happy hour on here. We visited a place while we were in Mount Pleasant called Paige's Okra Grill, and it was amazing. And there was a lobster roll place we went to, and I can't remember, the name of it escapes me, but it's right there in the middle of Charleston. So if you're in Charleston and there's a lobster roll place, that's it. It's like Martin's Lobster Roll or something to that effect. But anyway, I've talked way too long. Enjoy the footage, and remember to like and subscribe. Share the video if you like it, and I'll see you soon.
I work at the Meeting Street Inn. I've been working here for about 4 years, and I've had a lot of experiences throughout my time with ghosts and unexplained things that have happened. One night I was working a 3 to 11 shift, and I had this woman come in off the street. She wasn't even staying here. She was speaking to me in the bellman at the time, and she was asking us about a door in the floor, a wooden door. And I said, yes, we do have one of those. It's in the back. And she said, well, I'm being called there by something. Do you mind if I have a look? So we went back there and we opened up the latch that leads down into our basement, and she just got very emotional. She told me that she had a feeling that there was a male presence down there and at least 2 children's spirits. And she said that the children's spirits were stuck here and being held by the male spirit. He wouldn't let them leave. And then about a week later, I had another guest staying here who was a medium as well, and she said the same thing to me. She said, did you know that you had a male spirit here who is holding some child spirits captive? And I said, actually, I did have that mentioned to me. It was just kind of odd that happened back to back.
Wow. I know you had quite a bit of experience.
Yeah, I don't know if you read about the one in here, but one day I was checking out guests and I had this really sweet couple staying with me, and I checked them in the night before. It was either their anniversary or their honeymoon, and they were so sweet, and then the next day they came down and their demeanor was completely different. So I was like, what's wrong? Was everything okay with the stay? I was a little concerned that it might be something like that, and they told me that around 3 a.m. they woke up, the wife did, and the shower was on. So she turned around in bed to see why her husband was in the shower, and he was sound asleep next to her. So she woke him up, and he went and tried the door, and the door was locked. And about 30 minutes had passed. They waited outside their room because it was 3 a.m. They didn't know what to do. They heard the shower shut off, and they went into the room and opened the door, and there was no one in there, but you could tell that the hot water had been on because the windows were steamed and the mirror was steamed up, but no one was there.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. So, yeah, I heard that it's certain rooms.
Yes, there are a few rooms. These 6 rooms above the lobby, those are all original with the historic part of the hotel. So that's where the family lived. And between the walls now are some of the old oak doors and oak doorways. So there's still that residual energy I feel attached to those rooms especially. We have a few housekeepers who won't go in those rooms alone because they're so afraid and they just don't like the energy up there. We have one housekeeper who claims that there's a woman living in there and she's seen her in a white dress before. She went into a room thinking it was a vacant room to inspect it or something, and she went in there and there was a lady standing there, and she said, "Oh, excuse me, ma'am, I thought this room was empty," and left and checked her board again and realized that it should have been an empty room and went back in and no one was in there.
Wow. That's awesome. We're staying in 201, so we're kind of like in that older area. Cool. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
I know you got to get back to work, so
thank you.
Thank you. This is Halloween. I'm here in Charleston, South Carolina at the Circular Congregational Church graveyard, and we're gonna check it out. It's been very cold and wet and rainy for the majority of our trip, Friday and Saturday, and it was really difficult to get out to the graveyards. 2 of them are closed. St. Philip's and St. Michael's cemeteries are both closed, but we're gonna check this one out. This is the actual church behind me. It's very, very tall and circular. The reason why they made it circular, I heard on a ghost tour last night, is because evil hides in corners. So they made it circular. It is an all welcome sort of church. Anyone who wants to come can come. so there's no affiliation requirements, or you don't have to take a bunch of classes just to go in or anything like that. It is just a all welcome, and they try to be all inclusive as well, so LGBT friendly and all of that. So pretty cool, I thought. So we're just gonna go around the cemetery. A lot of the tombstones are so old that you can't make out any birth or death date on the tombstones. They're just there. I don't know how they or they're very light, so there is script on the front of these tombstones, but it's just very hard to read because they're so old. But if you'll see, as I look around, it's very tight in here. There's a lot of gravestones, a lot of headstones. This one's really beautiful. Actually has a whole planter out in front of it. We have these sort of monument style tombstones, and the graveyard is open to the public at this hour, so there are other people in here besides me. So if you see someone in the distance, it's probably not a ghost. Especially not that one. That's my husband right there. The beautiful church bells of, I believe, St. Philip's right now are chiming, and that's it. The steeple for the church. Unfortunately, we couldn't get into that one, so there are a lot of above ground tombs as well. We really lucked out with this weather today. I can't imagine trying to do this in the rain and wet and cold. You can tell who in this graveyard came from money, that's for sure. They have the very large headstones. These over here that are more flat and tall are older gravestones. A lot older. They had a lot of those when I went to Boston, in the Salem cemeteries. It's just how they used to do it back then. It's a wonder they don't fall, but they're held in there somehow. Some of them are leaning quite a bit. There's a really good view of the back of the church and the steeple and everything. I'm sure it's very beautiful inside. They have a little walkway path that you walk on to look at the different cemeteries, or the different gravestones. They don't really, like I said, you don't want to walk over them if you can help it. So they really do the countdown on these. This one says, sacred to the memory of Eliza Lucilla, relict of the late R. Dewar Simmons, died on the 1st of November, 1849, in the 36th year of her age. They talked a little differently back then. This one is sacred to the memory of Miss Martha Caroline Teveau, who departed this life on the 13th of September, 1847, aged 61 years, 10 months, and 20 days. It doesn't say how many hours. But that's interesting because, we don't put that much information on ours. It's just, so-and-so, born this day, died this day. That's it. We don't go into great detail. But these tombstones are lengthy. It would take you probably a couple days to read all of them. They have full paragraphs on there. They all kind of look like the Declaration of Independence, because there's so much on there, especially these ones too. The above ground mausoleum style tombs, the entire top is written on, and you can't really make out what it says anymore because it's so old and weathered, but says a lot. It says a lot. I mean, these days it costs you about $1,000 just to write an obituary. Over here on the side, it looks like they have a bunch of tombstones that got ruined, maybe in a storm or something, kind of like stacked along the wall here, which is unfortunate and sad, because now these people are probably in an unmarked grave. These aren't in the best of shape. Some of them are, you know, falling apart. They're very, very old. Well, this looks like a newer one, but just to give you an example of how much script is on the top. It just goes on and on and on. It's a full obituary on a mausoleum. I'm just gonna swing around to the front of the cemetery now. There is a warlock buried there, evidently, according to our ghost tour last night. Here's another one with a lot of script on the front as well. Usually it's like off to the side or behind the church, but this one has the graveyard going all the way around it. There's the side of the church. A few more above ground mausoleums. I guess that's what you would call it when it's above ground like that. A tomb, a mausoleum. Evidently one of these in the front here belongs to a warlock. I don't know which one it is, but that was on our tour last night, so I thought it was kind of interesting. Some have planters in the front. I guess, you know, the graveyards, you can't leave flowers or gifts or things like that in a church graveyard. You know how it was saying it was customary to leave something to show respect in a public graveyard, or in a public cemetery, I should say. You can't do that in a church graveyard. That pretty much completes the graveyard. There's a couple here in the front that are fenced off. What I learned about this particular area here is that it's a mass grave. People that were known to have had yellow fever back when that was thriving, I think in the 1800s sometime, they actually were buried here in a mass grave because there was so much fear that the virus would be contracted, so they were just all kind of thrown into a mass grave. So hopefully they don't do that to us. But that's what happened right here. And this entire part of the graveyard is a mass grave, unmarked. We are in the mess hall of the USS Yorktown, taking the self-guided tour, complete with sound effects. This is the dental quarters. And there's the dentist. Looks like on the Yorktown they had a pretty good sized kitchen. Look at all their meat and poultry. They must be getting ready for dinner. And there's Randall getting hangry. He's ready to eat. And here we have our cooks preparing the meals. cool. Gives you an idea of what a meal would look like back in the 60s. Yes, I'll have some sausage, bacon, and pancakes. We are in the engine room. Kind of a heavy feeling down here, wouldn't you say? The stairs are very steep. Not really as exciting as the rest of it so far, but just cool. Just a really cool experience. I really love this stuff, the way they've staged everything in here, so you're not just looking at an empty ship.
You already did this one, babe.
The other side. Yeah. It just makes it a lot more fun to look at. The mannequins are pretty good looking too. And we're now in the bakery. So, pretty cool.
Lando Lakes.
Everything you need
Butter.
here to bake all kinds of goodies.
Arm & Hammer baking soda.
Shortening, bad stuff. Don't do that. And back here, we had pretty good equipment back in the day. I wouldn't mind having some of this stuff at my house. So, yeah, that's cool. Weather trip, so but we were fortunate enough to at least get some sunlight today, in addition to the wind, and there's no rain, so that's a bonus as well. But I have noticed that here in South Carolina it gets pretty flooded, so be prepared for that. We are now in the captain's quarters. It looks like it's about 3 stories up from the loading deck. So, pretty cool. I will be your captain for the day. Everybody run. This is the brig, where they keep all the unrulies. They bring them down to the brig and they get to spend some time in there. There's, looks like 6 cells in here. Pretty cool. Well, wasn't cool for them.
Oh God, babe, a hamburger for a dime.
They even have a little ice cream and hamburger shop on here. Pretty cool. I'll have a wiener. You have to be very careful when aboard the ship. There are a lot of very steep stairs, and one lady while I was here already fell, so make sure you're prepared with comfortable shoes and hold on to the handrails. kids, thank you for joining me again. Join me next week. I will be uploading on Wednesdays at 3 p.m. And I think about the end of December, third week in December, I'm going to start uploading and doing costumes again. Probably the third week in December. So we'll have, once in a Monday, we'll have some costume ideas coming out, just so you guys don't get bored of me. But anyway, thank you for joining me. Hope you loved it. And next week we'll be going to Ybor and visiting the Oak Lawn Cemetery, one of my favorites here in Tampa. So have a great weekend, have a happy Thanksgiving, and I'll see you soon.